This is Seagulls Player.
Season ticket prices announced this week. Great to see that the club have frozen prices with the younger fans and continuing to encourage a new fan base into the stadium. Small increases on the adult prices, which while people won't welcome any increase, I think some may have expected to have seen a larger increase.
Well, against those sort of losses there may be, but we're also incredibly mindful that whilst the economy generally is improving, people's wages are not going up in large amounts. That said, we have got inflationary pressure at the stadium. We have got rising costs of operating, just like any other business. So we are having to edge prices up slightly, but we're very keen to make sure that we don't lose the momentum that we've been building up over these last 2 or 3 seasons at the Amex. We're very keen to make sure that we continue to encourage younger, newer fans into the stadium so we can build that fan base for the future. And most importantly, we recognise that with 23,000 season ticket holders, we've got fantastic core support, and it's much easier to keep your fans and your existing fans than it is to attract new ones. So getting the balance right between, trying to cover those inflationary costs, trying to meet the financial fair play result, but at the same time recognising that there's enough pressure on people's pockets generally without the football club adding to that disproportionately is a really important part of our thinking. And I hope we've got it just about right. It's always difficult when you put prices up in any context, but I think they're reasonable. I think the vast majority of the feedback I've had in the last 24 hours has been incredibly positive and very supportive, just as it has been since the day we opened the doors here. So, again, very encouraging signs, and delighted that the response has been as good as it has been.
And I guess with the season ticket base, the fan base, the idea is to encourage as many people into the stadium, friends, family, that sort of thing, and to grow that season ticket number, if possible, even higher.
Yeah, we have to. Everyone knows we've still got 2,000-3,000 tickets available for most matches. That means we haven't yet got enough fans. We should be sold out. We want to be sold out. Going to the Premier League, I'm absolutely certain we will be sold out. And now's the time, I think, for people to get in, get their season tickets, get themselves, established in the stadium, and look to the future. We still have that burning ambition to play at the highest level. And when we do, it's going to be very, very hard to get a ticket here, I can assure you of that.
Transfer window, few comings and goings. What's been your take on what I guess at times might have been a difficult transfer window, it's fair to say, because of a number of different factors? Yeah,
it was a more difficult and a busier transfer window than any of us expected.
Or wanted, I guess.
Or wanted. Three players that left us. Left us because they wanted to leave us, and they all left us for different reasons. In those situations, it's very difficult for the club to resist. Offers that are good, situations that are as good for the club as they are for the player. And therefore the key to it then is to make sure that we maximise the value for the football club. And in selling Liam, we secured the club's record transfer fee. And despite some of the things you've heard and some of the things you've read, I can assure you that we did secure very, very good value for Liam Brigcutt, as we should, an excellent player. Similarly for Ashley Barnes, who was out of contract in the summer. And similarly for Adam, who was a great servant of the club, who was desperate to play first team football at the stage of his career that he is at. So in all cases, all 3 cases, there were specific circumstances for those departures. We then went out and we recruited some very good players to supplement an already good squad. The benefit of some of the injuries we've had this season, if there is such a thing, is that some of the young players have come through and have really benefited from first team football. Rowan Ince obviously springs to mind, Jake Forster-Caskey, Solly March, latterly Lewis Dunk has been given a bit more of an opportunity. This is fantastic for the future, not just because these are young players that we want to see come through our system and play for the first team, but just as importantly, it's a very good message to some of the other youngsters we've got in our academy system. And with the new facility opening in the summer, some of those youngsters we want to attract into our system, that first team football here is possible, that Oscar Garcia, our head coach, is prepared to play young players in top championship games and see them do well. So I think there are many, many positives that have come out of the transfer window, and clearly we've got a squad now that we can see competing in the second half of the season. If Oscar or David want to supplement that squad, they've got the loan window in which they can do that. And we'll see if the right opportunity comes up to strengthen and the right players available at the right price, then Oscar and David have got that flexibility to do it. and we'll absolutely support them on that.
So just touching on that, in terms of budget and availability to Oscar and seeing the business that was done in January, I guess there is a pot of budget, a finite pot, I guess. It'd be nice to be infinite, but there is a pot of budget there if the head coach and David can attract the right player to use and bring a player at some point.
Yeah, there's room for them to manoeuvre, and there was room for them to manoeuvre in the January transfer window. We didn't impose a significant restriction on any particular player, and it's really always difficult in the transfer window to sort of allow communication process to flow as normally or as transparently as we'd like it to. We're not going to post a list of our targets to give everyone a clue out there as to what we're trying to do. We're not going to reveal the size of our budget so everyone out there can put 10 or 15 or 20% on the price they might have asked for, without knowing our budget. And equally, we're going to keep our negotiations on selling players as tightly controlled and as hard and as tough as they can be, so that we get the best and maximum value for the club. It's not unusual to want to try and keep all of that as close to our chests as possible. And I read headlines in some of the newspapers about missed targets and missed this and missed that. We never published any targets. We never published any lists. So I don't know quite how people are judging who we've missed and who we haven't.
Is it fair to say some of the names that the club were linked with were spurious and untrue?
They were, but that's the transfer window. It's also, it's part of the industry that we now work in. We are in the sports business but entertainment industry, and therefore there is a lot of entertainment around the transfer window, and some of the things that we read and hear we laugh at because they're just not true, but that's the business and we all have to live with it, and it's not the end of the world.
I guess some of the speculation though is true, and I know it's the club's policy that they won't reveal names of targets or whether we've gone for someone or not, which is understandable in the modern day. But some of the players, I guess there were targets we did miss out on. Is it fair to say that was because the club wouldn't pay over the odds? The January window is notorious for being a seller's market, a player's market, if you like. If you're looking to secure a move, you might feel that you get that little bit extra.
Every club in every window has misses, every club. And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's competition, sometimes a player decides to stay where they are. But the January window is notorious for being a seller's market, and every player we go for, whether it's in January or whether it's in the summer, we will have a particular value attached to. And if the value goes beyond that, then we have to take a value judgment as to whether that increase is worth pursuing. If it isn't, then we're happy to walk away, and that's a sensible way to run a football club.
Who would make that decision? I guess there'd be a number of people that would have input.
Ultimately, all of the player decisions come down to the manager, whether he wants a player or he doesn't want a player, the chairman in terms of whether we can ultimately afford that player or want to use our budget in that way, and of course David and myself are in various of the discussions, particularly in David's case it's his primary responsibility on the buying and selling, and I will get involved wherever I'm needed to get involved in those negotiations.
Obviously we've spoken about players that left the club, and it's fair to say the club secured good deals in each of those, regardless of what one former manager might say. But I guess there must have been interest in other players as well. There's a lot of talent walks out onto that pitch there every other Saturday here at the Amex. There must have been interest in other players, a lot of speculation around names, and again, without wanting to name names, the club must have had to have rejected a few bids as well.
I mean, again, every club that sells one or two players, suddenly gets accused of being a selling club all of a sudden. The reality is, if you've got a good squad, you're going to get bids on your players, and we received a lot of bids on our players, and we turned down a majority of them. There were several bids, right up until the last minute of the window that were for substantial amounts of money on our players. That suggests to me that we've got a good squad. That suggests to me that we've got players that other clubs desire, but it doesn't suggest to me that we're a selling club, because if we were, we could have taken those offers, because they were in a couple of cases substantial. We've got a good squad. We want to keep it together. We want to enhance it, and we did enhance it. We might even want to enhance it further if the opportunity arises. The most important thing is a manager's got a group of players that are very motivated to try and get us to where we want to get to, which is promotion and into the Premier League. And let's hope the second half of the season, gives Oscar a little bit more luck with injuries, a little bit more of a rub of the green. I don't know how many times we've repainted those goalposts out there because of the marks that are on them, because of the ball hitting it so many times. But we really do now want to motor on to the end of the season and do the best we can for the football club, not just in the Championship but in the FA Cup as well.